We're following multiple breaking stories right now. The U.S. government may run out of money tonight and completely shut down. And negotiators still haven't worked out a deal on a desperately needed coronavirus relief package. Right now, the House of Representatives is voting on a 2-day stopgap spending bill to try to keep the government running past midnight tonight. The Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is checking to see if any Republican senator would object to that. Let's get an update on where things stand from Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. He's on the Finance Committee. He's also the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. How real is the risk right now that the federal government shuts down without a deal to help the millions of Americans who are on the brink of losing their benefits?
Well, there's no reason for that crisis to happen, and we are more than willing to pass the House's 2-day measure to finalize the negotiations. The only individuals that we hear may object to the 2-day continuing resolution to keep the government open for the next 2 days are some Republican colleagues. I hope they will come to their senses. It's never good under any set of circumstances to have a government shutdown.
You're absolutely right. Congress had months and months, as you well know, Senator, to do this. Why is it always seems to be coming down to the very last second? Why is there this holdup?
Well, it's always a difficult negotiation. You know, we could have agreed a long time ago, but we would not have had direct payments to individuals as is presently negotiated, which we think is incredibly important to help families be able to get to the rest of the pandemic challenges. We would not have the money for unemployment insurance, which we think is critical as well. So we have had to hold out in order to try to ensure that the real essence of helping people is realized. I'm going to support the package that I thought was already finally negotiated, even though it doesn't have aid to state and local governments, which I think is critical. We're looking at maybe 6 million public sector employees will be laid off, and that's going to have a real pain to middle-class families and to the economies of state. But for the moment, I'm willing to vote for the package that did all these other things. But at the 11th hour, our Republican colleagues are bringing in new items that are crippling in terms of the government's ability to continue to help families in the days ahead. There's no reason to do that in exchange for the essential elements of what our families need right now.
The Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, now supports including a one-time $1,200 stimulus check to a lot of Americans out there. Should a bill pass that doesn't include at least $1,200, this one-time stimulus payment to a lot of Americans, would you still support it?
Well, my hope is that we'll have the $1,200 payment, and families need that. That's what kept a lot of families out of going into the poverty levels. We've seen a great number of Americans now going to go into poverty. We see a great number of Americans, including in my home state of New Jersey, of people who are standing online for the first time in their lives at a food pantry. Never did this before in their lives. So that's the reality for many Americans. So my hope is that we will reach that number. But at the end of the day, what we cannot have is the Republican insistence of closing down the very levers of government that are necessary to help the very people who need the help now and will need it next year as well. I have no doubt that there will still be a continuing need to some degree, and we need to have every door open, available to us to make sure the economy can respond and that people can be held whole.
Yeah, millions of Americans have now gone into poverty, and only last week, nearly 900,000 Americans lost their jobs and applied for first-time unemployment benefits. It's a horrendous situation right now. Hopefully you guys up on the Hill will get this thing done. Let me ask you, before I let you go, Senator, about this truly unprecedented cyber attack on various U.S. government agencies. The White House says President Trump is, quote, working very hard on this, but he doesn't want to tip off adversaries. That's what they say. How do you respond to that?
Well, there is no substitute but a firm and rapid and public response. Once you're clear about who the enemy was, and every indication from all the sophistication and the elements of what was done would suggest Russia. But once you have the clear ability to attribute, you must do it publicly, you must name, and then there must be consequences. I'm really appreciative that President-elect Biden has said that he will not tolerate such attacks and there will be consequences, because if it is Russia, which I believe it is, if it is Russia, unless there are consequences, they will continue to do this, undermine our national security, undermine our private sector, undermine our ability to restore our economy. All of these things are affected with the type of attacks that are going on now. And 9 months of not knowing it is really an intelligence failure.
Yeah, and so far I haven't seen any severe consequences as far as the Russians are concerned. Senator Menendez, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Wolf.